Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, and my special guest Andrew, welcoming you to this week's special episode of What Did You Think? And the reason I say it's special is because this movie today comes from a category that doesn't actually exist on our Twister Spinner. Because the last episode we did, which was Thriller, we had End of Watch.
Yeah.
And we've now replaced that with... what was that movie?
Searching.
Oh yes, another found footage movie.
You were searching for the title.
Yes, I was. I completely forgot. Yeah, so because the Twister Spinner landed on Patreon, at the moment we don't have any patrons, but maybe one day?
Please.
We need it to survive. We need food on the table. Yes. So I said to Andrew, on the spur of the moment, I said, would you like to pick a movie, given that I have Matt's picks on here, and we could do it as a one-off and see what you think. And straight away, he surprised me with a title that he had in his head there and then.
Like I said back then, I was considering asking you about it because this is basically a movie that I have a childhood connection. I'd say childhood, teenage connection to. Cannibal, the musical. Shall we establish the basic facts first, or do you want me to say why
I will do the info quickly, which is, as Andrew said, the movie that we've picked is Cannibal the Musical from 1993, which is written, directed and starring in the lead Trey Parker, and also features Matt Stone, i.e. the South Park guys.
This is a movie from the South Park guys, which tells you right away if you want to see this movie or not, or if this is your kind of humour. How I came about this was, I think this was during the first or second year of South Park's broadcast, that they had a themed evening on Channel 4.
I remember that.
My only two abiding memories of that are that they had interviews with Trey Parker and Matt Stone in a bathtub or a spa with a random Asian person for no reason. That's just their humour.
It was the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then right at the end of the evening, they suddenly showed this film, which they did introduce very quickly as something we made in college. And as I'm sure we'll go into our opinions on it, but basically a childhood favourite movie of mine. You could argue perhaps that it's the kind of adult comedy movie that you're not supposed to watch as a child, but your parents let you anyway. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, although compared to more shocking humour over the past few decades, as this exemplifies, maybe it's not really that bad. But you think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail as a fun, silly runaround of this ragtag band of misfits, which I really loved. So this, as I watched this more and more, this was very reminiscent of that kind of story. So I really got into it, and in particular a particular song, which I'll just go into right now before getting into the story, when all hope seems lost and they're starving and desperate and hungry and miserable, and the music is playing. The one of their numbers starts singing about life is tough and sad and we're probably going to die. So let's build a snowman and make him my best friend. We can name him Bob, we can name him George, we can make him tall or we can make him not so tall. And all the other characters look at him like, what the hell are you doing? So I love that. So for I don't know how long it was, maybe you could tell me. It was a few weeks to maybe a month that I would sing this and recite this, and it was a real great moment and a great movie. And at one point the characters do suddenly go, oh, for God's sake, Swan, shut the F up. And I think you said that to me. But whether you then proceeded to blow my brains out is another matter entirely. But that's kind of why it popped into my head to revisit that movie after so many years, to see if I still have that warm, fuzzy connection to it. Shall I just quickly explain the plot then?
Yes, please.
Or the setup.
Yes,
it's
please.
based on a true story, apparently, something that really happened in American history. It's one of those movies that starts out with we're getting close to the end of this man, Alfred Packer, played by Juan Swartz in the credits, but no, it's Trey Parker. He's being tried, and everyone thinks he's guilty as sin of murdering his fellow party members and eating their flesh, and we get a quite graphic scene of this, and they're obviously preparing to pronounce him not guilty, but he says that's not what really happened. And this journalist, Polly Pry, who, as the movie goes on, has a bit of a thing for him, visits him in jail and thus gets the story from him of what really happened. And he was a happy-go-lucky, smiling fellow with the love of his life, Leanne. Oh, Leanne, he would talk about her hair, shining hair and big pointy ears and her long tail. Yes, he's basically waxing lyrical about his horse. He's got quite a thing for his horse, who's been with him since he was small, and how beautiful and lovely Leanne is. But moving swiftly on from that, in his local mining area of Utah, they get word that some gold has been discovered in Breckenridge, and so some people in the group feel that if we go out there, even though winter is coming, the majority of the group think it's going to be the middle of winter soon, we should wait until spring. But some people think, no, we should get there in time and then we can get the gold first. And most of the group, who's with us? And most of the group say, you're bloody idiots, and walk away. But no, some people decide to go along, including a happy-go-lucky guy. Sorry if I can't remember these supporting characters' names. Happy, optimistic guy, priest guy, horny teenager guy who's hoping to, if once he gets gold, then he'll get laid. And a cynical, miserable butcher who's really just there to be miserable and cynical, whilst other people are going, oh, we're having a fun time, aren't we? No, we're not. Yeah. And another guy who's basically played by Matt Stone, so forgive me if I just call him Matt Stone guy.
That's fine.
And because who was going to be the leader of the group, Lucky Larry, has just been struck by lightning, so not so lucky. Alfred Packer says, yeah, I went to the Colorado area where the gold is once or twice. So oh, you know the territory, you can lead us there, can't you? Yeah, I suppose I can. Right, let's go. And they get lost. They encounter a couple of people that say, you're doomed.
Very Friday the 13th.
Pay no attention to that guy. So can you give us directions? This mountain is cursed. You're all going to die. And or when they stock up for provisions at one point, it gives us an opportunity to say Fudge Packer at some point. Ha ha ha. But also come across some villainous, nasty trappers who they don't get along with purely because, oh, where did you get those bunny rabbits? We killed them. Oh, that's not nice. But also because the trappers go, oh, that horse of yours, we like that horse. She looks like a proper trapper horse. Well, she's not. She's Leanne and she's my beloved horse. And things only get worse from there as they encounter oddballs and individuals. And when Leanne goes missing, so she obviously scouted ahead, we'll follow wherever she went to. Guess how far that gets them. And given the title of this movie, guess how hungry and miserable and desperate and what they eventually resort to. And not in the way that the court that has decided Alfred Packer, the only survivor, is going to hang tomorrow morning. All the while in the musical style of Oklahoma.
So, I'm kind of speechless here as to, number one, that you picked this, but I suppose you had your reasons. But let's talk about this movie before the legacy of what happened after. But the movie is essentially based on a true story, as you said, and it's a musical, which it's very well done for the musical numbers. that these guys clearly have a talent for writing good songs, as noted in their later films, which we will talk about later.
Yeah.
But that is a cool talent there. It's very well made for a movie that you say is a student movie.
It's a student production, yes.
According to the budget, $125,000 is what this movie cost. And you can clearly see that the money is well spent with all the people involved, and the song and dance numbers are really, really well done. So for a first-time filmmaker, I suppose, in Trey Parker, he clearly did a good job of it.
Yes. I want to say, having been to college and university myself, that you can see where the actors were from the local drama group or from the college that they worked at, and it's all filmed on location with maybe, I don't know if it's early 90s standard cameras or just this was what they could afford. But they, like you say, they do make a good hash with the choreography of the numbers, and especially, as we'll probably go into, that Trey Parker very clearly loves his Broadway. He knows how to structure a tune, and even if it's comedic, it's got proper roots.
Yeah, because you have this song that's in the movie, which is the one that he's singing about Luan, the horse, and it's a beautiful song. It really is beautiful, and you just don't expect that he's singing it about a horse. But again, that's his talent, is that he can write songs. And obviously the best song of all, which is Let's Build a Snowman, which is just a fun, happy, jolly song. I can imagine that song being played every Christmas, and you would have no idea it's from a movie called Cannibal the Musical, right?
Yeah, or apart from the opening bit about life is tough and we're going to die. So if you cut that out, then yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that I could sort of see that joke and that song being played in an early episode of South Park, but yeah, that's a good point with the Christmas.
So this movie, I think, took roughly maybe 2 years to get completed by the guys, and I believe they shopped it around to nearly every film studio that they could think of, and they got a solid no from everyone.
For some reason.
But one studio did pick it up that were interested, which was Lloyd Kaufman at Troma. Troma, famous for the Toxic Avenger movies.
The Schlockmeisters.
So they put it out on DVD. I think they gave it a limited edition theatrical run and VHS at the time, and it did nothing. And then all of a sudden, in I think 1997 or 98, something like that, a TV series came out which was created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone called South Park for Comedy Central, and it became the worldwide phenomenon that it's been ever since. So then all of a sudden the interest in Cannibal the Musical picked up, and now people are saying that this movie is a cult classic and it's one of the best movies that they've made.
Yeah.
Given that after the success of South Park, the next movie that Trey Parker did with Matt Stone was Orgasmo, which I've not seen. So. And then the following year, which they starred in a Zucker Abrahams Zucker movie, which was Basketball, which I have seen.
And I've not.
Which you're not missing out on much, to be honest, because they didn't write that one.
Thank you.
And then 1999 come along, and the movie that they're most remembered for, South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut, which, wow, what a movie.
Yeah, I'm sure hopefully one day we can talk about it in more detail, but I will say right now that I went to see that with a friend, and his comment coming out of it was that, oh blimey, there was a lot of songs in that. I didn't know South Park was a musical or something like that.
Hence why we're saying with Cannibal the Musical and South Park bigger, longer and uncut.
You can certainly see the joins here, can't you?
And also it followed on with the 2004 movie, which is my personal favourite of the Trey Parker movies, Team America World Police.
Which at the college that I went to, all the students around me quoted that every single bloody day for a long time.
Yeah. So, yeah, this movie, It's an interesting choice that you would pick a movie like this, because to be honest, this isn't a movie that I would have immediately thought. I thought you were going to pick something action or comedy, because I know you're a very funny guy and you like those sort of things. But for you to pick a movie that I would have kind of described as a WTF type movie, that's interesting. Very brave. But I commend you for picking a movie like this, because it is very different. And probably a lot of people out there who are watching these videos for the first time, if you've checked out our channel, you've probably never even heard of this movie. You've probably heard of the South Park guys, but you haven't really heard of the movie.
Well, that's partly why I wanted to draw attention to this, which I feel is a genuinely funny and heartfelt film with good songs in it. Also, I panicked when you asked me.
So I caught you off guard a little bit.
A little.
Sorry. But no, with the movie, apparently when it was taken to all the film studios, and then obviously Troma picked it up, originally its title was called Alfred Packer, the musical.
Which it still, I saw that in the end credits, and that did make me blink momentarily.
Yeah, because they said that it would be difficult to market a movie like this, because people would say, who the hell's Alfred Packer? Because unless you're from Colorado, you don't have a clue. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
So they just renamed it at Troma and said Cannibal, because that's what they do. They make schlocky horror movies.
Yeah.
So they know how to market a film. They have their target audience, and clearly it was the right studio to give this film to, I'd say. Although of the movies that Troma have released over the years, even though they didn't actually produce this movie, they just bought the rights, I'd probably say it's one of their better movies for the way it's done, because it just looks like there's a lot of passion, and the filmmaking is a lot better than, say, the movies that Lloyd Kaufman makes, because you can clearly tell that he is just making stuff up on the spot. If you've seen Toxic Avenger, you'll probably know.
Yeah, there is obviously a sense of a plot and payoff to this, with things like Leanne and the Trappers.
And there's no gratuitous nudity in here at all or anything like that. It's a bit of bad language, but I suppose if you were in that situation, you would swear in that.
If you're having your limbs ripped off, yeah.
Yeah, and the gore effects are quite good, although there's not many in them.
No, they start out with what the prosecution says is what Alfred Packer did to these people. And I think the colour is even washed out, because it's in a snowy forest. It's all white, and the only colour is they've somehow touched up the blood that pours out of the limbs, whilst Alfred Packer is supposedly biting on it with his maniacal eyes.
Yeah,
it does kind of set you up to think, oh, is the whole movie going to be like this? No, it's not.
No, because when I saw that scene, I remember seeing bits of Cannibal the Musical when it was on that Channel 4 night, and if I recall, it was on really late. I think it was like after 1 in the morning, something like that, so I had to tape it. It was too late for me to stay up, and I watched it in bits, and I think I lost my enthusiasm and attention for it, because of the fact that it was just so slow. But it is a musical, isn't it? So yeah. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of musicals, although some musicals I really like, but I don't know how you want to sum it up, but for me, it's an okay movie. It's not, for me, I wouldn't watch it again. I'm glad I've seen it in all this time, but it's like that. You get that with some movies. When you're a young teenager or a kid or whatever, and you see movies, and then your tastes change over the years. Like, I could watch a movie like The Goonies as a kid and love it, and I watched that film probably in the last 10 years, and I kind of thought it's changed a lot for me. I don't know if you feel that way with this or with any other movie, in theory, given you're seeing it through older eyes.
Older eyes and a university film studies education does make me notice the joins more, or that I can tell budget-wise and aesthetically from a visual point of view that it is I don't want to say cheap, a student production with all the budgetary limitations that does put on it. But I do stand by my decision after watching this to highlight and spotlight this movie, to say to people there is humour, there is very witty humour here, maybe a bit not crass, but in your face and shocking and juvenile perhaps humour in here, but it got a chuckle out of me then as a teenager and probably out of nostalgia. It got a chuckle out of me now. The best message I'm taking away from this is do give this a chance, especially if you've seen Team America, or if you went to see the Book of Mormon, and you could go back to 1993 and see that Trey Parker's talent, not only in comedy but in composing, in making music, it's all there. There are great tunes in here, and great jokes, not all of which I'll spoil, but one that does spring to mind is the Indians that they have.
Yes.
By Indians, I mean Japanese people who say that they're Indians.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, that's the best thing of the movie is the music. Definitely, I think that's more memorable for me. Hence the "Let's Build a Snowman" thing. That's kind of like a musical earworm. You won't get that out of your head once you hear it.
Yeah. And
every time you hear it, you'll be laughing in hysterics, and then eventually you'll be like, "Shut the fuck up."
And the Oklahoma-esque, the sky is blue and all the leaves are green, spadoinkle, and hang. It's even the last song that they do, "Hang the Bastard, Hang Him High." And you're not into musicals. I've been in jobs where I've had to watch musicals for a living, and watch. It kind of I get used to it. So I can get used to that and watch this and go, those are proper tunes coming out there.
Well, I'm not saying that I don't strictly like musicals per se, because I mean there are some great movies if they do it right, like Little Shop of Horrors, the Frank Oz musical, which is pretty decent.
Fair enough.
And there are a couple of others. I mean, I can't comment about things like La La Land, as I've not seen them. They don't interest me personally, but doing musicals with humour. That is a talent, and to have good songs.
Yes.
To have good songs. I mean, as you'll note when you watch South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut, for me, the most memorable thing in South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut is the music, especially Uncle Fucker, the first song in the film, and Kyle's Mum's a Big Fat Bitch. That's also memorable as well. There's lots of great songs in that movie, but I haven't seen that film in such a long time. I think I've heard the songs more in the years since the film, and the same with Team America, with America Fuck Yeah and all these other great songs.
In a funny way, is really the enduring legacy of a musical or a musical film, even if it's not so much the film itself.
So going on to South Park, guys, before we wrap this up. I believe they're still making South Park still after, 20 years?
Yeah, can't say I've watched any episodes.
Me
but
neither.
What you say is true.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I kind of deflected in the early 2000s with, like most people, with the Family Guy direction, where it's more pop culture. But South Park became more, I suppose, more political and more satirical with its humour, because I know that when Isaac Hayes was part of South Park and he played Chef, I know that they made a joke about his faith, and it immediately made him quit working with them, and obviously he held a grudge with that until his death. But it clearly showed that they're not afraid to tackle any subject.
Yeah, and they responded to that by doing an episode where he got killed because he joined a crazy cult that messed with his head. That almost their exact words. They weren't subtle about it.
No, but do you feel that with the direction of South Park, I mean, especially the fact that you say you haven't seen it in all these years, and neither have I, do you feel that maybe because of times changing, that things like Family Guy come along and it becomes more about pop culture rather than satirical humour?
I think that might be what networks decide is more palatable.
Yeah, because given that, wasn't it right that South Park
this is almost a apples and oranges argument, in my opinion.
Wasn't South Park cancelled a number of times and then brought back?
You might be thinking of Family Guy.
Maybe, might be Family Guy. So, anything you want to wrap up finally before we wrap this one up?
I think I've done all my basic thoughts, but give this movie a chance.
Okay, so...
And this is it.
Let's build a twister spinner. Terrible joke.
Nice, you tried.
I tried. Okay, so that was from his random pick. So
hope you had fun, kids.
don't watch it in the daytime.
If not, then please consider subscriing to Patreon or whatever it was.
Then you might get a say in what we talk about, as long as it's something that we both agree on. Of course, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's touch that spinner and see what it lands on now.
Right.
Ah, it's landed on superhero.
Yep.
You can see I'm happy now.
At least you're happy. No,
Are you not happy about superhero?
No,
well,
no,
given
no,
that the
no.
last superhero one we did, if I recall, was Justice League. So we've done that.
My point exactly.
So we did a Marvel movie before, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we did a DC one. What are we doing now? Okay, we're doing one that you might find interesting here, Andrew. We are doing the 1994 Marvel unreleased movie, The Fantastic Four.
You're right, I do find that interesting.
So, yeah, so we've picked that one to talk about, a movie that you lot have probably never seen, but it is on YouTube. So, this is the movie that is going to cause a lot of controversy out there amongst you Marvel guys. So, I'm looking forward to covering it, and fingers crossed you are too.
Let's hope.
Cool. So thank you very much, everybody. What did you think of Cannibal the Musical? Let us know what you think. Do you side with Andrew that he really liked it, or did you side with me where I was a bit, I was a bit underwhelmed, to be honest? Check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Maybe even go on Patreon and pick a movie for us. Give us a bit of money if you want, and a donation would be great to come and pick up. I'm not doing it like Bob Geldof, like, give us your fucking money. I'm not doing it like that. But
please consider.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much, everybody. And keep in touch, and we'll see you very soon on the next video. So all the very best to you. Bye-bye.
We're going for